Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Mind, Your Body, and Soul. I am Joseph Ward, and remember that Mind, Your Body, and Soul is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about various health topics and information they may not have access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, and mobilize our listeners to becoming the healthiest versions of themselves. And remember, you can catch our podcast on our website at nmcpodcast.com, as well as our parental website, which is www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.com. This podcast is also available here on YouTube and YouTube Podcasts, which spreads it out to different places like Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and of course, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. So today's interview, I am happy about today's interview because this is this woman I'm interviewing. She's a woman that I met as an author, but then I learned about her practice as an attorney, and she's an amazing author, an amazing person, an amazing mother, an amazing community member. And when I learned that she has her own private law practice and more about what she does as an attorney, I want to make sure I invite her on our podcast so we can learn more about her, but also being able to support what's in our community, to be able to support the community-based organizations, the businesses, all of our community members, everyone who is helping to make sure that our community is better. So I am going to give you a bit of background information about our guest. So our guest is attorney Felicia Thomas. She's a practicing attorney with over 26 years of experience. She's a published author and editor. She received her BS degree in journalism from the Florida A&M University and her Juris Doctorate degree from Florida State University's College of Law. She has obtained legal experience in a variety of areas, including Second Judicial Circuit's Public Defender's Office, the Florida Parole Commission, the Reemployment Appeals Commission of the Florida Department of Revenue. She owns her own law office, the law office of Felicia S.W. Thomas, PLLC, and practices in the areas of guardianship law, wills, probate, and VA disability law. She is also a professional guardian, and we're going to learn more about all of that. Attorney Thomas serves on the board of several nonprofits and is a member of the Florida State Guardianship Association and the Florida Healthcare Association. Attorney Thomas has published a young adult novel, short stories, and served as a ghostwriter on other works, and that I did not know. So Attorney Thomas, she's also a native of Quincy, Florida, and the mother of 3 children. Once again, I said an incredible individual. So I'd like to introduce my audience to Attorney Thomas. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for having me today.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Thank you for being available to be on our podcast. It's an honor to have you on our podcast. Like I say, I think the world of you. I think you're an amazing person, and I'm just happy to have you here. And I love that you're a very witty and funny person. And I know sometimes you come off a bit reserved, but when we get to know you, your personality is amazing, and she's a great host as well.
Thank you for that.
No problem. I remember. So before we get deep into your practice, can you give us some background information about yourself and why did you choose to practice law?
That's an interesting question. I know attorneys who've known since they were children they wanted to be attorneys. I came to that realization a little later in life. After I received my degree in journalism, I felt a little lost. I wasn't sure that's the path I wanted to travel. And after talking to friends, family, they said, you should be an attorney. And I thought that's the last thing I should be, considering how quiet I was. I'm an amazing writer. I can say that all day. But I thought attorneys had to have certain types of personalities to be successful. Mm-hmm. But with my grades, my LSAT scores, I was able to graduate, get into law school and graduate. Mm-hmm. And once I started practicing, I saw that you really don't have to have a specific type of personality. You just have to be competent, compassionate, and looking for the best result and I've been able to do that. So it's a great career. It's brought me to many wonderful people. I call them my mentors. I've met amazing clients. I've done some amazing things. So I'm very grateful for this career I have.
Right. So I think that's amazing as well. And like you, I also thought that attorneys had to have some kind of eccentric, outgoing personality, because that's like the image that we will always see, especially on TV, like the person who's like the loud person, the yeller, and I have to get this. And so I
Yeah.
thought that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Well,
I
it's
like,
more on the merit person.
yes, I like being that anti-stereotype, I guess you would say.
Right.
Because I don't know
Right.
if you would look at me in a crowd and say, "Oh, she's an attorney," but you learn more by listening.
Right. Right. You definitely do, because there's no that look. There isn't that look. So you're definitely right about that. So how did you go from a practicing attorney who was in your career within your field, you were employed by other entities, to being able to create your own law firm?
I've always wanted to work for myself. But when I started my career, I wasn't thinking that way. But that seemed to be most attorneys' goal is, maybe work for themselves. But there are different types: those who want to work in the public sector, those in private practice, and there are those who want to become judges, and there are different paths. So I worked for a variety of state agencies, and I did well in all of them, but I wasn't feeling my niche. I was searching for my niche, and I hadn't found it. So I started taking on clients of my own and started doing work that I enjoyed. And eventually, after 20 plus years, I found a niche in guardianship and veterans disability. I've done a variety of things, but those things help me fulfill this humanitarian goal, I guess. Of course, I'm getting paid to do it, but you don't get rich doing the types of work I do. So there's that component that I feel like I'm giving back.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's very important, because another aspect of being on the outside looking in, we really believe, the general public really believe that, okay, because you're a lawyer, you're making all the money, and we really only look at like criminal law, things like that, because that's what we see all the time. But as I was looking through your website and your bio, and I could see, like you said, the guardianship, the AHCA licensure, veterans disability, the wills, the sales tax, the consumer law. I wasn't even thinking about all those different aspects of law. So that's another reason I'm excited about this interview, to get to learn more about these different practices and how you help people in these areas. So what is guardianship law? Because I know when I say guardianship, the first thing I think about is maybe somebody getting the right to be a guardian over a child, or be a guardian over somebody who may not have the capacity to look after themselves. Is that correct?
Well, guardian ad litem is separate from guardianship. Guardian ad
Okay.
litem is an individual that steps into the shoes of a child to speak for that child in legal proceedings. But you're correct in terms of guardianship, when it doesn't necessarily have to be an adult. It's a person with some type of condition that renders them unable to care for themselves, manage their finances, manage their social life. It could be a cognitive disability. It could be the result of an accident. It could be age. It could be mental illness. And a concerned person, it doesn't have to be a family member, can approach the court through an attorney and say, this person needs somebody to look after them. As long as you're 18 and you don't have a felony, you can serve as the guardian. Then there's the court proceedings. A judge has to adjudicate a person incapacitated. Otherwise, you can't just walk around saying this person is incapacitated. They need somebody to care for them. This is court proceeding. And then once the guardian's appointed, they have they're a substitute decision maker. That's first, because what they're doing is, if this person could do this for themselves, they would do it, but you are stepping into their shoes. And then when you cannot determine what they would have done, then it's in their best interest. So for instance, if you become the guardian of a person who used to smoke or who smokes, you can't just come in and say, well, you can't smoke anymore. You know, so there's certain rights are removed and placed with the guardian. Some rights can never be moved. And then, and so it's a full-time job, 24 hours a day, looking after an individual. You come into contact with nursing homes, insurance, you know, managing their bills. So it's quite a labor of love, and you know, you're compensated if the ward, once they're determined incapacitated, they become a ward with lots of court oversight. This continuous court oversight through the life of that person, or until that person either passes away or they're restored to capacity. People can be restored to capacity. And so it's, this is a very interesting field.
So another reason why this caught my attention is my mom is disabled. So I grew up in a disabled community, and I remember seeing young people and older people who had guardians of them, but I never thought about the legal aspect of the guardianship, or even the role that you would play as the lawyer to help facilitate the process. So like, can you kind of take us through like some of the things that you would have to do as far as the lawyer to helping to ensure the guardianship, or even to sever the guardianship?
Okay. Well, guardianship starts when a person approaches me about, you know, I need, or I want to be the guardian of this individual. Let's say grandfather. Now, I must caution people that guardianship is a last resort. You should prepare, like when you're good and healthy and everything's great, you need to look to the future, to that time when you may not be able to care for yourself. That's the time to put things in place, such as a durable power of attorney, healthcare surrogacy, you know, those advanced directives. Put them in place now and appoint people that you trust to manage you. If you're looking at guardianship, it's because none of those things are in place. And at the point when somebody starts having severe memory loss, or they start wandering, or they're late paying their bills, it's too late to put a durable power of attorney in place. The other thing I need to caution people about is that we all have the right to make bad decisions. So we need to distinguish between, is this just a bad decision? Maybe granddaddy's met some new young lady and he wants to shower her with gifts, or is he being exploited? So, but a person would approach me, let's say you, the grandson, would say, my grandfather needs a guardian. I would petition the court to have you appointed. There's a second case that's open called a mental health case, in which that's the capacity portion. Grandfather is appointed an attorney, a leaseor. He or she represents grandfather and advocates as zealously as the petitioning attorney, because if grandfather can say, I don't want a guardian, that attorney has to represent his interests. So an examining committee of 3 is appointed: a doctor, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and a social worker. They go out and they evaluate grandfather. They write a report that says, yes, he needs a guardian, a plenary, which is over his person and property, or he just needs a guardian of his person. He can manage his finances, or he just needs somebody to manage his property. He can decide where he wants to live and where he wants to go and things like that. Plenary means person and property.
Okay.
And so if their report is unanimous, there's a hearing. This is when, there's no opposition. There's nobody else trying to become the guardian.
Right.
It's unanimous. The attorney leaseor agrees. The judge signs the order. You are appointed the guardian. You receive letters of guardianship, which is like your marching orders. These are the things you can do for grandfather.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's in a nutshell how a guardianship proceeding begins. But once you become appointed the guardian, you must have legal representation. So that's another attorney involved who represents you as the guardian, and by extension, grandfather. So there's court oversight. You have to file plans. You have to show how his money's being spent. There are rules you must follow. And the attorney is there for advice, to file those pleadings, and keep you on the straight and narrow, make sure everything goes well.
Okay. So is there anyone in place, say there's a rift between the grandfather and the guardian, and the grandfather has been deemed not
incapacitated.
Yeah, right. Incapacitated. Not, he can't take care of himself all the way, but he's unhappy with the guardian. Is there a mediator or someone there that will be able to advocate on the behalf of the grandfather other than the guardian?
Well, you as the guardian would be responsible for getting him an attorney. It could be that same attorney leaseor who doesn't stay with the case the entire time, but you can reach back to that person to say, well, we need to go back to court to see if I need to remain the guardian, or if you want to resign and have someone else step in, or the court needs to make some decisions. But yes, there's no mediator. You would have to find someone to represent him.
Gotcha.
Because if you're a guardian of the property, he can't contract. He can't hire an attorney. That would be your role, to hire someone for him and go back to court and let a judge decide.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Makes sense. And so going into practicing law, were you aware of these different areas, and did you already have interest in these different areas, or are these areas of law things that piqued your interest as you learned more about law?
Yes, it was the latter. I had no particular practice area I was looking at when I graduated. But through the years, I would, learn about these different areas, and I would learn from those who are already practicing, and learn from myself, and I would get into it. And, as long as you're competent, you shouldn't jump into a lot of different areas that you're not familiar with, because it could cause you problems in the long run, like malpractice.
Right.
But be comfortable with it, and try to help people.
Yes. Now I think that's great. Because the stereotype for a lawyer is especially the defense attorney, is these people are only in it for the money. That's why I love doing interviews like this, so we get to talk to people like you, so we can get a realistic view and a realistic perception of who our everyday community members are, no matter what industry and no matter what career they're in, because the media gives us like fixed ideas of people. So a lawyer is supposed to be this. They're all defense attorneys who's always just about money. And so I'm glad that you are reiterating one of the reasons you're doing this is because this is how you are giving back to your community. This is how you're helping your community.
Yes, I'd like to say something about that. Now, like you say, some people think defense attorneys are only in it for the money, and some people look at public defenders, and I was one, as not real attorneys, but they are. They're probably the hardest working attorneys out there. Not given much credit. They do the work of these, what people consider expensive defense attorneys, but not getting paid that same money. But I would say most attorneys are working hard. I mean, the work they do does come with a price tag. You're paying them for their experience, for their expertise, and the cost might seem high, but that attorney standing between you and a prison sentence, between you and losing your home, you and losing your child, is there a value you would put on that? And so I ask people to think about that, and work with that attorney. They can't work alone. You know, if they need evidence, they need it from their client. It doesn't materialize out of thin air. Yes, they do a lot of research, but the client is part of the team.
Right.
So that's what I would caution people. Don't go in with these preconceived ideas, and just listen. And sometimes attorneys charge a consultation fee. You're getting the benefit of their advice, their experience, their education. And sometimes a consultation fee can save you money in the long run. Might help you avoid having any kind of litigation, or, you know, it may steer you toward mediation, trying to work it out. Not everything has to land in front of a judge.
Correct. But I mean, you are right. But it's a mindset for us, because we don't mind paying consultation fees for other things that we like. And so it will be the same thing, paying a consultation fee to a lawyer, a professional who's giving you professional information. And this is what they do. It's it's about the experience. If we don't mind paying consultation fees for other areas of life, it shouldn't be this. It's the same for reaching out to a lawyer.
For the legal profession. I think of it as if you have to pay $25, $40 to see a doctor when something is causing you pain, then, you know, think of it that way. Would you rather continue suffering in pain because, I think that's $25 is too much to find out what this thing is growing on the side of my neck, you know?
Right.
So, but we still have a long way to go. Still, I think people look at paying an attorney as, I don't know, necessary evil, and their fees are unreasonable, but they're getting the work done. So, you know, it's just a conversation that attorneys and clients must have.
I agree. So you also help with veterans' disability.
Yes.
And you provide representation for those who are looking to gain veterans' disability. What is that process like?
Well, usually my clients have already been trying to get their benefits, compensation for illness and injury incurred during service, or illness and injury aggravated by service. And I believe that if you put on the uniform, even for a day, and you were injured the same day, you should be compensated. So we look at what illness and injuries they have connected to their service, and file a claim. Sometimes those claims can take years to be approved. So in my opinion, it's like fighting another war. They fought once, you know, for the country. Now they've got to fight again for their compensation. But that's what we're there for, the long haul, to make sure they get what they're entitled to, however long that takes.
It went out for a minute.
Yes.
Because right when you were saying the illness and injuries, it went out.
Okay. Do you need me to repeat it?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay.
Now I'll edit. I'm gonna have to edit this anyway. So
Okay. I was saying that we review what's going on with them from head to toe for PTSD, any illnesses they had that was aggravated during service, and we file a claim. And sometimes those claims can take years to be approved. They can be denied several times. We just have to keep fighting. And in my opinion, it's like another war for the veteran. So I stick by them as long as necessary to get them the compensation we both believe they deserve.
Right. And so, because Tallahassee has a bustling veterans community, and I know we have a homeless veteran stand down coming up on the 19th. That's going to be at FAMU. And from my vantage point, I also have two friends that within the last 3 years have sought after their veterans disability. One has gained 100%. The other one, I think, has gained like 50 to 75%. And I know a couple other people years back. So none of them ever really explained or talked about having the help of a lawyer to obtain the veterans disability. So is that do you recommend people use a lawyer when they're going for the disability, or is that something that could be a personal choice?
I think it's more of a personal choice because the veteran service organizations also provide the same service. They, file the claim for them. They go through the paces with them, and they're able to help them get their compensation. And some veterans prefer to do it themselves. So it's definitely a personal choice if they choose to hire an attorney.
Gotcha. Okay. But I know, in my opinion, from what I've seen, everybody doesn't have the same level of understanding, the same level of information. So that's where you would come in to help protect those who may not know how to take that next step or do need that extra understanding. So you will be there for their own protection.
Yes, to help them. Some of them get very far on their own, and usually they just get frustrated and tired. And so I step into the breach. And I'm frustrated for them, and I do the work for them. But there are those who, they got that soldier mentality. They're going to go through it and get it done, no matter how long it takes.
Right. So what are some things that would cause a veteran to be denied their disability?
Records sometimes not being able to connect the injury to their service. Could be a number of things. They have to have a current disability that service connected with, medical records showing that they're currently, suffering from that illness or injury.
Okay. And it seems like it's a process too. Like you said, some people can deny, some people they can apply over and over and over. But it seems like it's a real process for people to go through to make sure. I know on one end to make sure that all of the information is correct, but it's still a process though. So.
Yes, it's quite a process. Okay. It's doctor's visits. It's military records. Digging those up, and then their own words carries weight. Their own lay statements can play a large part in these cases.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that would make me think they have to be mindful of what they say, what they're doing, how they're communicating, especially if they're going after disability. I know some may have a mindset of I can do it, I can get over this, I don't really need that much help. But if you're using that type of rhetoric and you're going for disability, that could possibly be not the best.
Exactly. So it depends on the language, the words you're using. Because VA language is different from ours. Yes, I suffered this, I went through it, but I'm doing okay now.
Mm-hmm. Right, I got you. You gotta be mindful about how you are explaining yourself, how you're dealing with the injuries.
Yes.
Got you. So you also deal with wills, probate, and advance directives. Now, I know what a will is, but what is a probate or an advance directive?
Okay, they are all somewhat interrelated. Okay, a will is a written expression of how you want your assets distributed after your death. Probate is the legal process of making that happen.
Gotcha.
Okay, the will is filed with the court, and whoever's named the personal representative, which is who we call them the testator, says, I want this person to handle this. So they have to hire an attorney, file the will. What's important, it's called an affidavit of heirs. The courts want to know who are all the people that could possibly inherit from this person, even if it's different from who's in the will. Because a will doesn't necessarily mean you are leaving everything to your children, your siblings. You can leave it to a charity, So, so probate is the legal process for distributing your assets to whomever you want to inherit them. Now, advance directives, again, are advanced, meaning you prepare them before you need them. So we're talking about a living will, about if you are in a vegetative state, you have an end stage condition or a terminal condition, whether you want life-sustaining measures taken. Then there's the healthcare surrogacy. Somebody can step in and make medical decisions for you if you're unable to make them for yourself. For instance, you're unconscious. Then there's the power of attorney, which gives someone else, who call them the attorney, in fact, the authority to transact usually financial decisions for you. A power of attorney is revoked upon your incapacity, because you're still active. A power of attorney is not the authority to go out and change things and put them in your name. I've seen people abuse powers of attorney. While that person's still active and alert and everything, they can do this for themselves. You don't have that authority until they tell you to, or you become incapacitated. But a durable power of attorney allows you to continue to act in the event that the person is incapacitated or unconscious, that type of thing. But it ceases to exist once you pass away. So those are the advanced directives. So again, every family should have this conversation, as uncomfortable as it might be, to talk about wills and those advanced directives. Like, this is who I want to do it. Families don't get along sometimes, and you'd say it's mother, planning her final wishes, and she might choose a child that she hasn't seen in a few years. She may have her reasons for doing that. And the child that's taking care of her right now, or, in the house with her, it's her choice. So, but families should really have those conversations, family reunions or whatever. It should be a topic of conversation. And everybody should have one, because tomorrow's not promised to any of us. And we've got unfinished business. We've got, we may have a few dollars in the bank. We may have a house or whatever. Who gets the house? So without a will, the law determines who gets your assets. It's called intestate succession. And when you marry, the law, it makes that determination as well. So you can make a will, and you have a spouse, and a spouse gets half of your things if there is no will, and your children or whomever else gets the other half. So that's why it's important to
Mm-hmm.
come in and talk to an attorney about a will. You can't just, leave your spouse out. There might be, you might be separated, but in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
you are married until you are divorced. There's no legal separation.
Right. Right. Okay. Now but all of that what you just explained is important and powerful. It's especially um talking about the power of attorney, how sometimes it can be abused, because just thinking of power of attorney just seems like, okay, I have this power. I can just kind of pretty much do what I want to do with the person, and as long as I feel like it's in the best interest. But it's still some nuances within that. So a person can't just go all willy-nilly with somebody else's life like that.
Right. And again, the advance directives can prevent you from having to seek guardianship, because again, a durable power of attorney, if you put certain things in place, you're already doing what you would need to do under guardianship, because guardianship strips people of their rights. And
Mm-hmm.
again, if you see a decline in someone, you see them acting out of character, and not just little things, but somebody who's meticulous about their finances, and all of a sudden you've got bills going unpaid. They're writing large checks to organizations you've never seen them interact with. By then it's too late to do something, and that's in our community. That's typically what happens. We see grandfather declining over years. First it's a little funny, but it
Mm-hmm.
gets worse and worse until, okay, now it's too late. You can't get a power of attorney to address that, because grandfather is the one that signs it. He needs to know what he's signing. He needs to understand what he's signing. And if he's
Right.
having memory loss and can't remember what he signed, then it's not appropriate to use it.
Right. 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 Okay. So yeah, and so like anything else in those areas, it's a process, but people really need to sit down with someone like yourself and get a consultation, ask questions, make sure they have an understanding before they just move forward in certain things, because they want to make sure they make the best decisions for themselves and their family long term, especially if we're talking about the transference of wealth. Because I know within our community we always talk about generational wealth, but
Yes.
sitting down with you to make sure I have a will, I taken care of my advanced directives, those things. Because if we're talking about building wealth, but I'm not doing those things, I'm missing some steps. So
Right.
yeah, that's very important. So what you do is very, very, very needed, very, very important. That's amazing. Like that's good.
Yes, and I'd like to also mention, when it comes to transferring wealth, in in our community, usually in the rural communities, our wealth is tied to land. But
Mm-hmm.
we then it gets all we run into problems with heirs property,
Yes.
in which the original owner of the property did not have a will, but it passed down to generation after generation. The family owns the property, they possess the property, but they don't have clear title to the property.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when they're ready to farm it, mortgage it, use it as collateral for things, they find that they have run into a huge hurdle. They can't homestead it because they don't have clear title. So there's
Right.
been this push in the last few years to help people clear title. And I'm part of a group that's working toward helping people clear up these heirs property issues. We're
Okay.
having a workshop in Gaston County on June 10th. People should look for that on the Gaston County's website. They will be able to register, I'm assuming in a few weeks. So we can answer those questions about heirs property. That's where wills come into play. That yes, maybe great 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 grandfather didn't know because they weren't intended to know.
Right.
That they should have a will to pass on this property, and the different issues people come into contact with. So now at this level of generation, we should know at this point, we should have wills. If we're trying to keep the land in the family, or, you know, a certain part of the family wants to sell off their part, they can, but there needs to be a discussion. There's going to be some legal action. There needs to be wills. So it's important that people do have those discussions. And heirs property comes with its own set of issues, family dynamics, who's paying property tax, and who feels that they're the owner of the property. So we intend to address a lot of those issues at this workshop on June 10th.
Okay. And when you get if you have a flyer for that, when you get a chance, if you could email that to me so I can make sure I spread that out and more people can know about it.
Well, actually, Gaston County's doing the advertising. So what I can do is keep an eye on their website and screenshot it or whatever and send it to you.
All right, thank you. Now, and I'll check it out as well, because heirs, in my family, my grandmother's house, it's heirs property. There are about 6 or 7 brothers, 2 sisters, and I always hear my mom complaining because this person isn't paying their part, or this person isn't paying their part, and you have to do this, have to pay double, have to go all these things. So, and you're saying if from the beginning, and understand that in the past, all the barriers that was in place, but nowadays moving forward, if somebody has property, they should make sure they put it in their will. Talk to you, talk to an attorney like yourself, put it in the will, so generations down the line, or even put the proper paperwork so generations down the line, the heirs property issues, most of them could be mitigated, or you won't even have those issues with the heirs property, and the property could still be in the family without somebody taking it or something. So
right. Well, the thing with that, if it's already heirs property, you got to go beyond your mother.
Gotcha.
To whoever owned it first. You got to start there to clear it at that level. And so what we're talking about are generations. So every time someone, let's say great grandfather had 7 children. Okay, so the property's divided 1/7 to each child, and then one of the children has, let's say, 3 children, and that person dies without a will, then their 1/7 is divided by those 3, and every generation adds another level of beneficiaries. So we're talking about 20, 30 people or more, depending on how many generations we're at. So we have to go all the way back to the very beginning. And there are times when people, you know, I don't want to have to pay this property tax. I don't have to. And then there are some who do pay it, but there are others who's like, if nobody's going to help me pay it, I'm not going to pay it. And then we've lost the whole property for pennies at a, tax deed auction. And it's sad to see it go that way. There are those carrying that burden for years. And unfortunately, that doesn't give them a superior right to the property. So, so it is a conversation that as many family members as possible should have at one time to talk about, this is where we have to start. This is how much work is involved, and this is what it could cost. But think about what the property means to the family, what its market value is, and to decide, do you want to take this on, or do you want to continue to have this issue and add more generations to the list?
Right. Yeah, because when you said that, make my mind explode, because I thought about the number of different people with that particular property in my family. I know my mother and her brothers, they will be the generation under my grandmother, but then the children, because there are a lot of children, and some children are still being found. So I'm just thinking, my brother and I, from my mother, I have one uncle, no telling how many children he has, but it's just all of the 8. So the total is like 8 to 10 brothers who all have children. And then now those children have children, and some of those children have children. So it's all convoluted now.
Yeah. So if your mother is the second generation after the original owner, this is a good place to try and nip that in the bud by, getting it title cleared when you don't have all those generations involved. So if it's, let's say her mother bought the property, passed it to her without a will, although, the title's not clear, and there's just her, maybe 2 or 3 other siblings. That's an ideal place to begin, because we're only dealing with that line.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then they can get the property cleared. They can determine if they want to divide the property, if they want to buy somebody out, if they want to partition. And then whatever they decide to do, they each get a will to decide what they're going to do with their portion of the property. So there are a lot of options once the property is cleared, but it doesn't end there. You need to make sure that, you got procedures in place, documents in place that will end that heirs property issue at their line.
Right. Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, that's great information. I'm definitely gonna play this back for my mother so she can listen to this and get this information, because we need it. So so overall, for the audience, she deals with guardianship law, AHCA licensure applications, veterans, disability, wills and probate, and advanced directories, sales tax consultation, and consumer law. And just so the consumer law, because the summary on the website says providing assistance and representation in debt collection issues, garnishments, and inaccurate credit information. And so help me understand consumer law. I see the summary, but kind of break that down for me, please.
Yes. Let's say you have a credit card that you got, 10, 15 years ago. And either you thought you paid it off, or it maybe it went to default or something. There's a statute of limitations for when you can be sued on that debt. Okay, so if let's say 7 years, but in the 8th year you get a complaint in the mail saying you owe this credit card X number of dollars.
Right.
The first thing you do is not agree that you owe that debt. Okay, that's called affirming the debt. You can reactivate a debt that you no longer owe. So what people typically do is they panic first, like, oh my goodness, I'm being sued. But those companies, those defendants, the plaintiffs attorneys, there's certain things they have to prove first to prove that you do owe the debt. And sometimes those steps are missing. So, but you have a choice. You can either hire an attorney to represent you to make them prove that you owe the debt, or mediate it and reach some kind of settlement, or you go in and say, yes, I owe it, and end up having to pay this debt that, you thought no longer existed. So those are the credit card issues. Sometimes there's identity theft, and, credit card, not just credit card, but someone using your information to get credit cards, and you check your credit report and you see debts and loans and things that you never heard of. You can write to those credit reporting agencies and dispute it. or you can hire me to do that for you. But
Right.
there are a lot of things you can do yourself. Then there's garnishments when someone owes you money and
Right.
they're not paying. You can hire an attorney to make a demand or sue them in court, depending on the amount, whether it's small claims or it's at a circuit court level.
Right.
So these were some of the consumer law issues that I handle.
Okay. That's important to know, because I know I've come across people in the past, and I've heard stories of people looking to collect on certain things, garnish certain things. There's a popular thing going on in the social media with Cardi B and the bloggers and stuff about garnishing payments and things for defamation of character, all those things. But so basically, people shouldn't just go out trying to be vigilante and seek justice for themselves if they want to make sure they don't have any repercussions, especially legal repercussions on the back end. So contact someone like yourself before you go out trying to enact justice.
Yes, yes. I mean, if you are getting calls from debt collectors, I don't know if that's still a thing, but they're required to validate that debt. So if they call and say, I'm from so-and-so debt collection agency, you don't agree that you owe the debt, because, they can use that against you.
Right.
You tell them you want it in writing and you want them to validate the debt. Usually they're collecting for someone else, the original creditor, or they've purchased that debt and now they're trying to collect on it. So you make them prove it first in writing. There's certain rules, there are laws that require them to prove that debt to you. And then if you're sued, don't ignore summons. Go and talk to an attorney when you've been served with a summons. You have 20 days to respond to that complaint. Don't wait till the 19th day to try and hire someone. As soon as you're served, you start looking for somebody to go over that with you. And it's up to you whether you want to hire that attorney or not, or you want to represent yourself. And if you want to represent yourself, at least get some kind of advice. Nobody's forced to hire an attorney. They don't have to, but it would be in their best interest to at least speak to someone.
Right. You have really educated me today. Gave all of us, my listeners, a lot of great information. Honestly, because you have helped to clear up a lot of misconceptions and myths. Also, just give basic information that we need to know, because we don't know a lot of these things. We don't know. We're so fixed in our worlds, doing our thing in our routine, making sure our day-to-day goes. And a lot of these things that we discussed today, they are affected. They do affect our everyday lives, our everyday worlds. But a lot of times we don't know where to go to, where to start. So we just try to handle things all by ourselves and not understanding, once again, taking advantage of the resources that we have available. Because I know here in the healthcare realm, you have, and what's the great thing about you have like a couple toes into the healthcare realm as well. But we always talk to our patients and our clients about taking advantage of the resources. But same thing with you and with us. Take advantage of a resource like yourself, because it will save a lot of headache and pain and paying people back and things on the back end if you take care of it as best you can on the front end.
Yes.
Now that's amazing. You're a very valuable community member. Yes, everybody needs to.
I try to be. I really am.
Yes.
But there's still a lot of people who don't see us as a resource until it's almost too late.
Right.
And we can jump into the fire with them, but there's a cost for that. So if proper planning, seeing someone early, before you need the service, it's better to have it and not need it than to
Right.
need it, not have it.
Right. Right.
And we're out
Yes,
here
ma'am.
ready to help. It's just, there's a cost to it. You're not going to get a doctor to operate on you for free.
Right.
It's
Right.
something you need, and it's an attorney. This is what they go to school for. And depending on how serious the issue, it's going to cost you, but it may cost you greater without the help.
Right. Right. Exactly. 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 So, Attorney Thomas, this was a great conversation. Once again, I learned a lot. So, somebody sees this interview, they learned a lot as well, and they want to be able to get in contact with you. What's the best ways that someone can get in contact with you?
They can call me at 850-366-3910. They can access my website at fswthomaslaw.com. Send me a message through chat. They can email me at fswthomaslaw@gmail.com.
Okay. And all of that information, all of our contact information will be in the description of this video, of this audio. Once again, Attorney Thomas, a stalwart in our Tallahassee community, a very, very, very valuable and great person in our Tallahassee community. And don't forget, she's also an author. Before we go, I have the picture of your book in my mind. I can't think of the name. Tell us about some of the books that you've written.
Okay, I've written 80 Proof Lives. It was my debut young adult novel. I've written some short stories, some self-help books. I help other people write their stories, so it makes me a ghostwriter. Currently working on some short stories, some pieces I'm looking to get published on other podcasts. It's just, it's my passion. It really is. And I find myself in tug of war between what I do for a living and what's my passion. So I'm getting back into it. I journal practically daily, so I am writing constantly. I'm looking to get myself published again soon, in the next year or two. And while I'm here, I like to, if I can, a shout out to my amazing children, Adalia Thomas, Anaya Thomas, and Aaron Thomas. They are my lifeblood, and they keep me going.
Yes, yes. I run into your daughters from time to time on FAMU campus.
That's Anaya.
Yes, yes. But I remember even your older daughter. I would see her on campus because we do our HIV testing on the set, and we've been doing that for years. But yeah, amazing people, amazing children. They are great, care of themselves well, great leaders. So yes, ma'am. Definitely give a shout out to them.
Thank you.
Shout out to you. A shout out to you, though. A shout out to you. We appreciate what you do. I appreciate what you do here in Tallahassee once again, because I believe that we need to show our community members love, especially the people like yourself who are pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into the community. You're doing what you love in your community, and you can't ask for more. So thank you for what you do on a daily basis.
Thank you. And I'm available for any programs you have. You need someone to offer legal information.
Yes,
I'm available.
we will be having you back because we're going to start back hosting our in-person healthy happy hours, where we basically bring somebody in and allow them to present for about an hour to our audience. So definitely going to have you a part of our healthy happy hours when we get them started back up, because the information you have, we need to know. And there are plenty of people in our community who may not have access to the internet, but are in our communities and will show up. So
yes,
we will make sure we make that happen.
Great.
No problem. Attorney Thomas, everybody. Attorney Thomas. I told you this was going to be great, and it didn't disappoint. So this is how we do. So make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you're listening to us via audio, download this audio. And remember, you can visit our website. If you want to learn more about Neighborhood Medical Center, visit neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org. for our podcast, nmcpodcast.com. Remember, we're on Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and of course here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. So with that being said, once again, thank you, Attorney Thomas. I am Joseph Ward. This is Mind Your Body and Soul, and we will see you all next time. Peace out.